Hey guys, Matt Quick here with Matt Quick Outdoors. Just want to take a real quick second here and do a quick tip with you. Ice fishing is well underway for 2016-2017 ice fishing season up here in Minnesota. We're super excited. We've only gotten out once here as a crew this year so far up on Mille Lacs Lake. We ended up doing really well, and I got to thinking while I was up there, some of my gear needed refinement. So today I find myself going ahead and throwing on some brand new Shimano Sienna 500s. It's a great little ice fishing reel for really any type of presentation, be it walleye, crappie, northern pike. It's a reel that's just about perfect size for any rod. Obviously there are situations where a different style reel will be more important, or maybe a little bit smaller, or quite a bit larger if you're going for some of them big pike and that sort of thing up on the Lake of the Woods. But for a good all-around fishing reel, I cannot recommend the Shimano Sienna 500 enough. So today we're going to be putting that on, and you'd think it's a fairly straightforward process, but there's a few things that I'd like to point out to you to help you make this process a little bit easier and to protect your gear. And I'll show you what I mean by that here right now. 99% of the time, you're going to find yourself with an ice fishing rod similar to this one that has a cork handle. Cork, I definitely prefer cork. I don't know if it's just the aesthetics of it or it's just kind of what I used growing up, but I always generally stick to the cork. But when you go ahead and you tape on with electrical tape, over the years of changing them out and that sort of thing, the cork really starts to get chewed up and you start losing chunks of cork, or in this case, a lot of the stickiness from the electrical tape has been left on the cork. So it's really just kind of a bummer. It eats away at the cork. You can see several gouges here and there. It's just not a way that I like to treat my gear as a general rule. A few things that I've learned throughout the years is to lay down some backing on here to protect the cork. And what I have here today is just some standard blue painter's tape that I've gone ahead and already cut out some chunks. Generally it's just about half the width of a standard strip of blue painter's tape. And what I go ahead and do then is I lay that down across the cork straight away, just like that. And it only takes a few seconds to do that, so I'll go ahead and do that now. I always leave maybe a ½ inch or just a hair less between the two strips. And I'm gonna get to actually where you want to put your reel on the rod a little bit later, but that's more of a demonstration on how to understand the balance point of your rod. So straight away, that's a great way to protect your rod cork. Now, with that being said, painter's tape is not necessarily everything or the only way to do it. Masking tape has worked for me for many years. I just unfortunately don't have any at the time, and I happen to have painter's tape, so we're gonna go ahead and use that. Again, it's just not going to leave that sticky residue if I do decide to change reels, be it size or style. It's going to leave my cork in a more new configuration, if you will, so you don't have to deal with that going down the road. So we're going to actually, just for the ease of the video here, we're going to pick up this other rod, which I've already done for us today, and we're going to put the reel on this rod. So I've gone ahead and taken out my reel from the package already. And the first point to this is to be made is take the handle off of your reel. It's a very simple process. Generally speaking, you're just going to pull the little nut off the one side or screw off the one side, and then your reel will just pull right off. And I'll show you why that's important here in a minute. Now, I already understand the balance point of this rod, so I'm going to go ahead and just do what I need to do here. I generally line it up from the backside first, so as if I was fishing, I look down the rod and I get it, generally speaking, correct. Then I'll flip it over like so. I'll hold it with my thumb on the rod, just like that, okay? And I'm going to sight line down the rod across the stem here, all the way down, and I want to use, obviously, my dominant eye here. If you're not understanding the difference between your dominant eye or not, definitely look that up before you do this video, otherwise it's going to be way out of whack. But find your dominant eye, look down the stem of the rod as straight as you can, and the object here is to not see any of the guides. And then I discussed real quickly about leaving a little space between the two pieces of masking or blue painter's tape, and you want the stem of that reel to end up roughly right where that section of no painter's tape or masking tape is. Then, which I should have done before, get yourself some electrical tape. I generally peel off about a 6-inch strip for this particular reel, and you'll go through the process of putting the reel on. So I'll just do that real quick. Line it up with the stem, get a general sight line. And then you take your electrical tape, careful not to move the reel too much. You lay it over so there's a little gap on the opposite side of the reel seat. You're gonna just barely let that lay there tight. Then you're gonna, whoops, see, there you go. Double check it, yep. Go ahead and just wrap it on. Now, I told you to take your reel off of your reel earlier in the video, and that's to aid in this particular process. If you have the reel here, you're gonna be constantly trying to get around that and having to spin it and everything like that. It just makes it a lot easier and a cleaner process. Then you just verify what you got going on. This rod is not new by any stretch of the imagination, so it's a little off because of the eyes are bent up a little bit, but virtually that's it. I'll go ahead and tape up the backside too, but back to what I was saying about balance point of your rod. When you put your reel on, you want to make sure that it is set forward or back on the cork appropriately for the length of the rod based on the size reel that you have. And one really easy way to do that is to take your finger and check the balance point. It should be directly equal to your spool. So if you can put your finger on there like that and your rod balance just about as perfectly as that, and you can balance it a little bit just to make sure it comes back to center. If you are way off, let's say for instance you tried to put it way back here as the balance point, well, your rod's gonna fall, right? The object of this too is to aid in the sensitivity aspect of your rod. When you're holding your fishing reel, as most guys would, like this, you're not constantly fighting the weight of that rod and the weight of the reel in combination. It's going to balance nicely. And then obviously some guys even like to dead stick. And I'm telling you, this is one of the hottest ways to dead stick in my opinion. If you have the ability to add a bolt or some type of rod, be it wood or metal, into your fish house or on a little rod holder type scenario, instead of having this in a rod holder to dead stick and watch for this, you can do it in a way where your rod is laying like so, and when the fish goes to bite, it's going to tip down and there's no weight. And it's going to aid in the scenario where you have light biters. Let's say we're catfishing in the wintertime. Catfish are notorious for coming up, and it's an up bite. Well, when the fish takes weight off, it comes up like that. So you're gonna get that obvious motion on the rod telling you have a bite. So that's definitely a secondary reason as to why we're gonna put the reel where we do as far as a balance point, but it's something to not necessarily overlook. And obviously, you know, after you're checking your balance point, you should verify that with the reel on, it's not gonna change. So I'll quickly screw this on and just verify before I go through and tape up the back side and redo the front just a little bit more. I generally put enough electrical tape on to hold the reel securely and to cover up the painter's tape. But yep, nothing's changed. And obviously it really shouldn't change a whole lot because you can see that the reel is set further back. You might get a little bit more weight on the rear of the rod, but as a general rule of thumb, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. But it's always a good idea before you go through the finalization process of putting the reel on, just to verify your balance point's still correct. And it'll last this way for many, many years. I mean, your cork's not going to get tore up from maybe changing reels. I know for me, I mean, I have dozens and dozens of rods and reels and everything like that. So sometimes I do take these reels off and put them on my spring crappie rods you know, that 5.5, maybe even a 6-foot ultralight for when I go crappie fishing. And the Shimano Sienna 500s are great for maybe the 5.5 footers. And then I'll throw the 1000s on the other 6-foot and so on varieties. So oftentimes I'll find myself taking these reels off and doing a multi-use situation for the springtime crappie bites and that sort of thing. So protecting your rods is the name of the game, and getting your reel on there in an appropriate manner to aid in sensitivity and use. So hopefully that helps you guys. I'm gonna go through and touch this rod up, and then I've got a few more. I wanna replace that rod there. That one's probably 20 years old, so I'd like to get a new reel on there, and I've got some new Shimanos to do that with. Stay tuned to Matt Quick Outdoors, guys. We're excited. I finally have got a good balance of camera equipment and fishing equipment and things like that, and got some good time to take off to go up and chase some fish. Stay right there, guys. There'll be more to come. I appreciate you watching. Thanks a lot.